Hey everyone, we are back with. Who are you guys?
I am Roos, and I will be joined on commentary by my good friend Grimelios, and I hope everybody's having a great evening.
Yo, what's up? How's that
Hey.
for a short introduction?
Are we ready to
Yeah,
get started?
Do we have Midnight Whisper with us? Oh, I think he's just.
Yeah, I just muted myself. Yeah.
All right, so if we're ready to get started, couple of quick things that we want to explain before the run gets started. So this is Into the Breach. I will let my friend Grimelios give you the rundown on the game once we get started, but I just want to explain the category real quick. This game has a number of different mech squads we can play. We'll be playing the Frozen Titans for reasons that will become clear during the run. Real quick, I just want to double check. When I looked at the donation incentive, squad color orange was winning. Is that still correct?
That is correct.
All right, cool. And we all are playing on the easy difficulty. Playing on higher difficulties introduces a lot of RNG that's not super pleasant to run. There are categories for those, but that's not what we're playing here today. And we will be using a pilot for our ice mech here who gives himself a little bubble shield, which is going to be really nice as well. So if you guys are ready, I'll go ahead and count us in. Are we ready to get started?
Yeah, Jimbo, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, getting started in 3, 2, 1, go.
All right, good luck, Roos.
Thank you.
Okay, so as we get into the actual run here, Into the Breach is a turn-based strategy game released in 2018. The category is any percent Frozen Titans, as you can see, but a more accurate name might be 2 Island percent. 2 Island referring to you have to complete 2 of these 4 large islands in order to unlock the 5th final one. There's a lot of information condensed into a very short period of time, so if you don't quite understand what's going on, we'll try to get to all of it. In this game, you play on these tile-based grids, and you can see a number of important units. First of all, you have the 3 mechs from Roos's Frozen Titans squad. 2 of them are not very complicated, and the third one with that green shield is the ice mech. It's by far the most important unit from the Frozen Titan squad because, as you can see, it allows you to freeze enemies, which in the context of this game is effectively a one-shot kill. In terms of actually working through the islands, Roos is going to be choosing from a selection of procedurally generated missions with different pros and cons from a speed perspective. So first and foremost, if you look up there in the top right, you'll see victory in 1 turn. Roos is very, very fast, so right there we're done with 1 mission. So that becomes the first very important aspect in choosing as fast of missions as you have from the available pool, is when possible choosing choosing missions with a lower turn threshold. This one has victory in 5 turns. That also reveals, I think, something that's really unique about Into the Breach as a strategy game is that it's much more about defense than offense. If you look up in the top left, you'll see these orange little blocks that represents your kind of structural health bar that persists for the entire run. So your goal in these missions isn't so much to kill all the enemies as it is to just outlast them, which means basically 2 very simple but very important steps is 1, kill enemies that are alive, and 2, when possible, block incoming spawns. So that's a bunch of stuff so far. The enemies in this game are called Vek, and based on the missions that Roos chooses, you will have some number, usually 2, spawn on the map. And from that, new enemies will begin to spawn, usually by burrowing up out of the ground. If you ever see like a rupture with a red arrow, that means an enemy's about to spawn there. And they spawn in a particular pattern. So after turn 1, the pattern becomes 2, 1, 2 for a total of 5 incoming spawns. So this is a little complicated. The first thing Roos is going to do is kill or freeze the original 2 enemies. He's then going to intentionally let the next 2 spawn and take them out as well, and then attempt to place these mechs on those incoming spawns in order to block them. When you have a mech on a spawn, you do block that enemy spawn for 1 turn at the cost of 1 damage to your mech. However, if you don't attack with a mech on a turn, you can also heal it, which kind of counters the damage. So right now, we've killed the enemies or frozen the other enemies that we haven't explicitly killed. The 3 mechs are chilling on the spawn points, and we just wait until the turns have expired.
An important note is that standing on the spots doesn't actually prevent the spawns, it just delays them. That's the reason we don't want to step on those first 2, because if by allowing them to come up, we can kill them and not deal with them. If we had stepped on them, then there would be too many spawn points for us to actually handle as the mission goes on.
Yeah, and speaking of missions, this is a very strong one from a speed perspective. It starts off with 4 turns, right, Roos?
Yes.
Yeah, and you can see that train over on the left, which Roos has already expertly destroyed in order to prevent animations, which, generally speaking, like we said, choosing missions with a low number of turns is very important for speed, but the next most important aspect by far is reducing unnecessary animations, which can come from a lot of sources, including environmental stuff like the train moving, but also enemies spawning and enemies attacking. So that's kind of the dual benefit of preventing or at least delaying incoming spawns. And with that, we're already onto the final 5th boss mission of this first island. You can see this kind of floaty jellyfish enemy denoted by a pink skull, which means it's the boss. Normally, these bosses are very dangerous, but in the speedrun, these boss missions can often be kind of easier than regular missions because you can just freeze enemies and kind of take them out of commission.
And normally I would just freeze the boss and have them be no problem, but because that enemy was one of those floating squid things, even if they're frozen, they still kind of apply a passive aura to enemies, so I chose to take the time to actually physically kill him, so that would no longer be a problem.
Yeah, so there we go, victory in 1 turn. Something else to mention is that every time you finish these missions, there's a little summary screen which talks about how many civilians you protected and whatnot. Roos is able to short-circuit that process by very quickly exiting to main menu and then re-entering. It's just a little way to save small bits of time. And with that, we have finished 1 of the 2 large islands. We have to finish 1 more. As before, Roos is going to be choosing the best available missions. This train one is also very good. You see another one of those orange floating enemies. Like Roos mentioned earlier, these floating enemies, when they're frozen, their passive effect will still activate. And so Roos is going to actually take the time to kill it rather than just freeze it. You see those 2 enemies spawn on turn 2. The pattern is going to be 1 additional spawn on the next turn and then 2 more.
So that actually doesn't apply on this mission because this is a 4-turn
okay.
mission. That on any of the 5-turn missions, that's how it's going to work. But these 4-turn missions have a reduced number of enemy spawns because there's fewer turns.
Mm-hmm. The next few missions are probably going to go very similarly. Again, Roos may get good or bad luck as far as the available missions. Sometimes you just kind of choose from the options that you have available, even if none of them are fantastic. One other thing to note on this ice mech, the floating one with the green shield, if you're looking at this run and thinking that the freeze ability that just freezes an enemy for the rest of the mission is kind of overpowered, you're right. But the idea is that the ice mech is normally balanced by the fact that it freezes itself. However, Roos has chosen a pilot for this mech that gives it the green shield once per turn and allows you to not freeze yourself, which makes it extremely powerful for this version of the speedrun.
Yeah, this particular combination of pilot and mech is basically like the engine that makes the Frozen Titans team work. It's very, very strong. And of the pre-made squads, I think Frozen Titans has the fastest world record because of it. It's really, really good.
Yeah, actually, you know what? Midnight Vesper, I think I'm going to toss to you for 1 donation if you have it. I don't think there will be anything extremely noteworthy for the next. I think it's maybe 2 more missions you have to do before the boss mission.
Yeah, we're almost there.
Yeah, so we have a real quick $20 donation from CutieRoo1, who says, "Going for the olive green color? You got this, Roos."
Thanks, Cutie. One quick thing I'll point out about this mission. You see a kind of crashed object that one of the mechs is currently standing on. That's called a time pod. Casually, time pods can be very useful because if the time pod survives, you get some extra resources from it, most notably power cores, which let you increase the movement range or damage of your mechs. And Roos is using power cores in this run, but having the time pod alive also wastes a little bit of time at the end of the mission. So when possible, it's nice to destroy it, which I think you did, right?
No, I got both time pods here.
Okay.
But you know, that's not really necessarily a bad thing because we do get to or unfortunately kind of have to force to choose a bit of a slow mission here. All the other options were kind of bad. But anyway, having the power cores to upgrade your mechs is pretty good. The final island can actually be pretty difficult, and so having a little bit of extra power is not always a bad thing.
Yeah, as we get closer to closing out the second island, this run, by the way, as you've seen, has a fair bit of RNG, but overall is pretty consistent in the sense that Roos would have to make some pretty bad mistakes in order to actually die. This game is a roguelike, so if you do wipe, you do have to restart, but very, very unlikely to happen. I'll kind of draw attention again to the top left, that orange kind of structural health bar. I don't know if there's a better name for it.
I think it's just called grid health in the game.
Grid health? That's what you have to protect is the point. And so the good news is that so far Roos has taken, I think, very little building damage, right?
My building damage has been self-inflicted. I've chosen to like shoot my own buildings in order to get something more useful done that turn. But yeah, I've taken just a little bit.
I think that can be tricky as well with the mech that's currently on the leftmost part of the screen that fires in two directions at once. So sometimes that's a trade-off you have to make. Anyway, with this, we are... this is the boss mission of Island number 2. Again, that pink skull representing the boss. Since this one is not flying like the other boss, Roos is going to be able to just freeze it and take it out of commission immediately. Again, with the parallel of the ice freeze effectively being a one-shot kill in the context of Into the Breach. Just a handful of enemies to take out.
One little bit of unfortunate RNG is this: the types of enemies that can spawn on each island are. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. It'll be all right. The types of enemies that can appear in each island are randomly generated, and this one that kind of shoots out that webbing is one of the worst ones we can see. But it's still pretty much worth it to come to this island because this one has a lot of the fastest missions to choose from, so we still want to come here anyway.
Yeah, there are categories of various Into the Breach speedruns that also do like 3 and 4 island percent, but 2 island is the fastest. With this second island finished, we now unlock the final 5th small island called the Vek Hive. The idea here, contextually in the game's lore, is that you're meant to go there and basically destroy the scourge of the Vek. This is a 2-part mission starting up at the top of this volcano, and in previous missions we've talked about the structure where even though there is RNG, Roos is going to take a general approach which usually guarantees a fair bit of consistency and success. In this mission, that's harder to do. There's just more to deal with. First of all, you have these energy pylons, which effectively act like buildings, but the enemy spawn patterns and the initial number that spawn are just kind of different. There's also environmental stuff going on. So Roos is very talented and, will make short work of these Vek, I'm sure, but it's just a little more complicated to deal with.
Yeah, there's not really a set pattern to this one, and actually, I unfortunately had to... That was like a pretty bad turn 1. The enemies were just in difficult positions to deal with. So I'm scrambling a little bit here to get things back under control, but I think we should be mostly okay.
We did see something I don't think we've seen yet, which is that I have described the ice mech as a one-shot kill. That's technically not true, as you just saw one of the Vek get broken out of the ice. Normally you can manage your enemies efficiently enough that, that doesn't happen, but not always the case. This is tricky as well. Even by knocking that enemy over, the enemy has line of sight on another building, which is going to lead to a little bit of grid damage unless we happen to get defense, right?
Yeah. So the more grid health you have, the better chance you have of randomly sort of getting bailed out on your... if you get hit on a building like that, this grid defense percentage up here is like your percentage chance just ignore that damage. Unfortunately, we didn't roll well, but it'll be okay. Well, this is enough health to deal with the final mission as long as we're a little bit careful.
Yeah, these Vek just being bullies. As you can see, the volcano at the top of the screen just kind of sending out little tendrils of lava, which will deal damage to your mechs. I don't recall whether that's a one-shot kill, but it certainly isn't great to get caught in.
So,
Anyways,
even though I've lost my pilot here in this mech, we will get him back for the other mission. He'll be replaced with an AI, which doesn't actually really make a difference in the context of a speed run. The pilots can level up over time, but we're getting through this run so fast that won't have actually happened at all.
Yeah, so here we move on to the second and final part of the final mission. Very important on turn 1 that as much as possible, Roos attempt to block incoming ground spawns. And the reason is that on turn 2, you're going to have these tentacles that come up out of the ground and they target wherever your mechs currently are. What that means is that if your mech is standing on a spawn on turn 1, then that enemy spawn will not just be prevented, but will be completely destroyed on turn 2 by the environmental hazard. So that's going to be the priority right here at the start.
Okay, let me see. We can,
Yes. The nuke landed on an enemy.
I always love when it does that. That's so entertaining.
Yeah. In this mission, you do have to protect your buildings as usual, but also you have to make sure that that nuke, which has 4 health, stays alive. You'll also see that boss enemy. There it is, frozen by the ice mech.
Okay, because my health is a little bit low on the buildings here, I'm taking my time on this turn just to make sure I don't actually accidentally game over here.
Yeah, it's one of the more interesting aspects of any game with RNG that you would try to speedrun. You have to adapt as quickly as you can. Anyway, so with this, we did lose some grid health. It is getting on the low end.
Hold on.
I'm kind of trying to let Roos focus here.
Okay, I think this should be all right. Okay, so we're not going to take grid damage. We will get a few more spawns than I like, but we should be okay. This mission has not been kind to us, unfortunately, with positions of stuff that spawned and like what kind of enemies came out.
One nice thing about this game is that you have very complete information. You know, so although there is RNG, you always have pretty much perfect information about the effects of both your actions and enemy actions on each turn. And by the way, time will be coming up pretty shortly. It's at the end of the final turn as the UI fades out. But Roos will call it out when that happens.
Yeah, we're going to see one final turn of animations here and then move to the end. Okay, let's see. We just need to take this guy out and this guy out, then we are in the clear. Okay, time will be as the UI starts to fade out. Coming up in 3, 2, 1, and time. All right, cut it a little close on estimate there, but honestly, with how rough those final 2 missions were, I'm just happy we didn't game over. But you know, still managed to pull it through. A little bit of a clincher there for a moment, but I was happy I was still able to show it off all the way to the end.
Yeah, GG, that was really good.
Thank you. Excellent commentary. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's fun.